The lunch bag sat alone on the polished mahogany table, small and plain, looking painfully out of place beneath a chandelier that cost more than most houses. No one noticed it at first. No one except the man in the motorized wheelchair at the head of the table, whose sharp eyes had learned to read the world from stillness. And in that silent moment, a simple forgotten lunch would collide with two broken lives in a way neither man could ever forget. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when people truly see each other, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Jacob Miller had learned to make himself invisible. At 53, with a bent back and hands rough from decades of chemical cleaners and cold water, he moved through the towering offices of Hawthorne Financial like a shadow. He arrived before sunrise, mopped floors that still smelled of last night's luxury, and wiped fingerprints from glass walls that overlooked the Chicago skyline. Most people never learned his name. They called him Janitor, or sometimes didn't call him anything at all. And Jacob, who had lost the energy to correct them years ago, accepted it quietly. Every morning, Jacob packed the same lunch: 2 slices of white bread with peanut butter, an apple if it was on sale, and a thermos of weak coffee. His wife, Ruth, used to pack it for him when arthritis made his fingers swell too badly to grip the knife. Ruth had been gone 3 years now, taken by cancer that arrived fast and left nothing behind but medical bills and silence. Jacob still packed the same lunch out of habit, as if doing so kept a small piece of her alive. That morning, exhaustion clung to him heavier than usual. His daughter Emily's rent was overdue again, and his grandson's asthma medication cost more than Jacob earned in a week. He hadn't slept well, his mind looping through numbers that never added up. When he finished cleaning the executive floor, his legs trembled, and he set his lunch bag down on the nearest table to steady himself. It happened to be the long conference table reserved for board meetings. His phone buzzed, a reminder alarm for a medication he could barely afford, and in that brief distraction, he walked away without the bag. Across the room, Thomas Hawthorne watched everything. Thomas had built Hawthorne Financial from nothing. A son of a factory worker, he had clawed his way into wealth through discipline, intelligence, and relentless control. Then, 5 years ago, a car accident shattered his spine and his certainty. The world that once bent to his will now moved just beyond his reach. He could not feel his legs. He could not stand. And worst of all, he could not escape the constant suffocating pity that followed him into every room. Thomas hated pity more than pain. That morning's board meeting had been canceled at the last minute, leaving Thomas alone in the conference room with his thoughts. His caregivers hovered outside, giving him the illusion of privacy. That was when he noticed the lunch bag. It was cheap, faded, and undeniably human in a room designed for power. Something about it irritated him at first. Carelessness, he thought. Someone would be reprimanded. Yet his eyes lingered. He instructed his assistant to bring it to him. Inside, he found the sandwich wrapped carefully in wax paper, the apple with a small bruise, and the thermos labeled with a fading marker name, Jacob. There was no brand logo, no luxury, no indulgence, just survival. For reasons Thomas didn't understand, his chest tightened. He had everything: private chefs, imported meals tailored to his nutrition plan. And yet, this humble lunch stirred something raw and uncomfortable inside him. On impulse, driven by a strange mix of curiosity and bitterness, Thomas decided he wanted it. He ordered that the janitor named on the thermos be brought to him, and that he would pay for the lunch generously. When Jacob was escorted back into the conference room, his heart pounded so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. He assumed he was in trouble. He had spent his life avoiding attention, and now he stood under the gaze of one of the richest men in America. His uniform smelled faintly of bleach. His hands shook as he realized his lunch was gone and sitting open in front of Thomas Hawthorne. The offer came quickly and coldly. Money in exchange for the lunch. Enough money, Thomas said, to buy 10 lunches like it. Jacob felt heat rush to his face. It wasn't the amount that hurt, it was the meaning. His food wasn't a novelty. It wasn't a joke. It was all he had to get through the day. More than that, it was Ruth's memory wrapped in wax paper. His voice failed him, but his expression did not. For the first time in years, Jacob didn't shrink. He refused. The room shifted. People were not supposed to refuse Thomas Hawthorne. Something unexpected happened then. Thomas felt shame, not the performative kind he'd learned to display, but a deep, unsettling shame that pressed against his ribs. He saw not a janitor, but a man who had lost almost everything and still held on to dignity with trembling hands. The power dynamic cracked, and in that crack, something honest slipped through. Thomas dismissed everyone else and asked Jacob to sit. Jacob remained standing, but he listened. Thomas asked about the lunch, about the name on the thermos, about the life that fit into that small bag. Jacob, exhausted and unsure why he was still there, found himself telling the truth about Ruth, about Emily, about the grandson who struggled to breathe at night, about working 2 shifts and still falling behind. As Jacob spoke, Thomas was forced to confront the distance between wealth and worth. His paralysis had taken his legs, but poverty had taken Jacob's rest, his safety, his future. Pain wore different faces, and for the first time since his accident, Thomas did not feel alone in his suffering. What started as an insult turned into an awakening. In the weeks that followed, changes rippled quietly. Jacob noticed his schedule shift to daytime hours. His pay increased, not dramatically, but enough to breathe. An anonymous donation covered Emily's rent. A new pediatric specialist appeared on his grandson's case. Jacob never asked questions. He had learned life could take things away just as quickly as it gave them. Thomas, meanwhile, found himself asking different questions in board meetings, about wages, about benefits, about the people who cleaned the offices after executives went home. His wealth no longer felt like proof of success. It felt like responsibility pressing down on his unmoving legs. One afternoon, months later, Jacob was asked to clean Thomas's private office. He moved slowly, respectfully, careful not to intrude. On the desk sat a framed photograph Jacob recognized immediately. It was his lunch bag sitting on that conference table, sunlight hitting it just right. Beneath it was a small plaque that read, "Dignity is not for sale." Jacob's vision blurred. In that moment, he understood that the lunch he almost lost had fed more than hunger. It had fed a conscience that had long been starved. As time passed, Jacob's life did not become perfect. He still worked hard. His back still ached. But there was relief now, and something even rarer, respect. Thomas funded a foundation focused on invisible workers, not with fanfare, but with quiet consistency. He never told the story publicly. Some moments were too sacred to turn into headlines. Near the end of his life, Thomas requested one thing for his birthday, not a gala, not a gift. He asked Jacob to have lunch with him. They ate simple sandwiches side by side, looking out at the city that had taken so much from both of them and, unexpectedly, given something back. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who need them most. And before this story ends, leave a comment with the words "Dignity matters" if you believe no human being should ever feel small for surviving. Sometimes, the most powerful moments in life come from the smallest mistakes: a forgotten lunch, a wounded ego, 2 broken men meeting not as rich and poor, not as able and disabled, but simply as human beings. And in that meeting, both found something they thought was lost forever: